Alright guys, welcome back to another MCreator tutorial. So today what we're going to be working on is a little thing called Blockstates. There is a way to actually get Blockstates to work in the current version of MCreator 2025.1. And this should work on pretty much any version that supports the block state properties. So I'll be covering how to basically implement something. We're going to use a simple block like this, and then what we're going to do is we're going to rotate it a few times, and then we're going to make different angles and then update it between two different block states as well as rotations. Let's go ahead and import a texture actually, and we'll just select our off one for now. We just need a texture in here for the moment. I'm also going to rename this texture just so it's a little bit easier for MCreator. We're going to call it state. So save that, and if you're not familiar with that, you can click on properties. The variable name is going to be the name in the MCreator when you're selecting the textures for the block, but we're not going to really need to worry about that because we're going to be assigning textures and stuff by hand. So first things first, we're going to go ahead and we're going to apply that texture to the whole cube, and other than that, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure the pivot point is center into the block. Now this will allow us to rotate it different directions and stuff, so we'll be able to rotate it different directions and make sure that it's all set up and stuff like that. Now to make it a little bit more interesting, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to rotate it on the axis like this, and then that way we can still have the regular rotation like this for the block, and so it will be able to rotate a whole bunch of different directions and stuff like that, but also still do the angled thing. So with that being said, we don't need to worry about renaming the cube. We just need to set the display for the item. It's recommended you do that now. So we're going to go to the apply preset, and then we're going to go to default block and then apply to all slots. And this will basically just make it so it looks like a regular block when it's in the inventory and stuff. And that's all good. We can go ahead and export this one for our JSON model. So we're going to call this cube, and then I'm going to just set a 0 for now. And then what we can do is we can rotate it one time. So rotate like that. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and export this again. And then we'll just say cube 1. And we'll rotate it again. And then we'll go cube 2. And do this until it reaches the rotation before it goes back to center. So this is the last rotation that we need. So we'll go ahead and save as export, and then we'll save this as 3. So this is actually going to be really easy to model in. And then when it goes back to 0, it's going to already be like that, and it's just going to continue rolling like this. So that will look really cool when we set it up through a timer. All right, so that part's done. Now, if you were wanting to go back and edit these models, I suggest saving your project each time you do that and save it as a block bench model. But for now, that's fine. We can just discard all of these, and we can go ahead and use these models and these textures. All right, so let's go to the resource tab. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start with importing the textures. We'll import block textures, and we're going to select our cube on and our cube off textures. And then we're going to go ahead and go to 3D models, import our JSON files. So we're going to start with 0, and you can see that is the variable that we gave the block itself for the name, so it's just the state. We're just going to assign a default model name here. So we're going to just use the off state. This won't really matter too much at the moment, so we're going to do 2 and set our off one. We just need something assigned here for the moment. All right, so that part's done, and it's going to be unorganized. As you can see here, there's like 1, 0, 2, 3, it doesn't matter too much. So we can start making our block next, and we're going to call it just cube for now, and we're going to go ahead and create block. We're going to select our 0 model and select our texture for the particles, and we're going to go ahead and set the rotation. So we're going to have it for the y-axis for the player, make sure that it's on cutout, and if you want to do waterlogging or anything like that, the fluid, it's not required, but for the tutorial's sake, I am going to demonstrate some stuff. So I'm checking both of these boxes here, hide when fluid texture is submerged and water is waterloggable. You can change any of these other settings. I'm going to not worry about the bounding box. This is perfectly fine for what we're doing. I'm also going to need to set up some properties. So if you have this screen here, this tutorial will work obviously. So we can go ahead and create a custom property, and I'm going to call this one on, or is block on. And this should be all lowercase. It doesn't support capital letters. It does support numbers. If you want numbers, you can do that. It doesn't support any characters either. So make sure that it's English, lowercase, letters, characters, and the underscore is valid. I don't think, yeah, the minus sign isn't valid, but you can use any of the other ones like I basically just did here. We're also going to use this one as a Boolean. This is going to be easier to demonstrate. So we're going to go ahead and set that one. And then what we want to do is we also want one for our states. So we're going to go ahead and create one here. We're going to have 3 states, or 4 states. So it's going to be 0 to 3. And we're going to call this angle. So that will be good. And then we want it as an integer so we can basically set up the animation. So we're going to go ahead and save that. And this means we have a total of 8 states. So up here is basically what we're going to have to work in. For now, this page is completely fine. And we're going to go over here. We're just going to set a block tab for it. I'm going to put it under probably building blocks for now. We can find it easily. I'm going to leave all these other settings. These don't really need to be changed. We will need a tick update for this particular thing to demonstrate it. So I'm going to set this to 1. Going to, I don't really know if we really need the tick updates or the tile entity enabled. Probably not, but just to make sure that we have what we need for support, I'm going to. And I'm going to make a trigger right now for the update tick, and I'm going to configure this right now. So, okay, so when you're working with a procedure and stuff, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and go to your properties, and you want a couple of these blocks. So integers are the integer property here. There's innums, which are kind of like strings, but they're set assigned names. And then we have our Boolean, which is true or false. So we could set up maybe a right-click event as well that will toggle the block on and off. And then what we're going to do is we're also going to make a tick update, which will cycle the block animation. So we're going to need a couple blocks for this. We're first going to need to test for what state it's in for the angle. We're going to set this angle, so it's going to be 0 for now. And we're going to go ahead and grab the integer property one here, and we're going to test for the angle. This part's going to animate it, so we're going to go ahead and drop that here. We're going to test if that of the provided block state is 0, and if it's 0, then we want to go ahead and increase that to 1, and we're going to do that, I would say probably 3 times. We'll use an else statement after. So we'll go ahead and set this one to 2, and then we'll set this one to 3, and then this one should be set to 0 to complete the cycle. And then what we're going to do is we're going to set this one to 1, and then we're going to set this one to 2, and then the last one will be 3, so we'll set it back to 0. So those are our options, and this will make the animation part happen. We're also going to need a right-click event, so we're going to go ahead and set the block when it's right-clicked. We're going to test if that value is false, so we're going to disable this. So we're going to go is block on, exactly the same as our properties here. So we have is block on and angle. And we just finished doing the angle one, so we want is block on, and we're going to make an else statement for this so we can turn it on if it's off. So we'll go here, and then we'll scroll down, and we'll grab the waterlogging one, and we'll go ahead and set this to false, and then we want to set this one to true. So if it's on, then we want to set it to false, and if it's off, then what we want to do is turn it on. So that's all that we need to do. Once you've done all these procedures and have everything tweaked like you want, if you have any generation, you can go ahead and save this. Now you should have 2 procedures if you're following the tutorial. If not, then make sure that all your configuration is done first. We're going to go ahead and generate the code, and then we're going to build the workspace, and then we're going to lock the block. So this is important for making sure we can actually edit the files and stuff. So we're going to lock that. You should see you can kind of see there is like a pink icon right here under the medium icon display saying the block is basically locked. So once you've done that, you can go to your workspace folder, and we're going to get into the source folder, go to your main folder, resources, assets, latest, which is the workspace or namespace for the mod. I just called it latest because it's the latest update. And then we're going to go to our models, and all your custom models are going to be located under here. These ones here aren't actually part of the mod. They did not delete. So we're going to have these ones here. These are the ones that we imported. And the items for that block are located here. So when it's in the item like inventory, this is the one that controls the inventory. And then our block ones are here. Now with this folder here, what we can actually do is we can make subfolders. Now I recommend when you're making changes like this to add a subfolder of the block's name. So basically in this case, it's cube. So what we would do is we would create a folder called cube. And then what this will do is if you unlock the block, then all your model properties and configuration won't update in this particular file. We will need this file at the moment. What I'm going to do is we're going to be changing the path and everything, so we don't need to worry about this right now. But make sure that this is in its own folder, and we're going to leave this one the way it is because I haven't experimented with this one actually yet. But we're going to be linking to these models here for the animation part. The other thing that we need to do is our block state, where all our states are located, are in the Blockstates folder. So it's in this one right here. And as you can see, I had some other things already worked out for one of my mods. So we have currently just the states here that are for the direction. Now, when you're working with waterlogging, there might be a variable that you need for waterlogging. It's the same variable that's in the part here. So we can go to block properties, data, and it'll be this variable right here, waterlogged. So this one would be after here normally. So you'd go waterlog equal to, it's a Boolean, so we go true. And you could do this, though I have noticed that it doesn't require this to happen in at least 1 or 2024.4. I know that's not, it doesn't require in 2024.4, but we'll find out if it does in this version or not. Right now, I'm just going to leave that disabled because I'm not sure if it needs it in the latest version. After that, what we're going to do is we're going to assign our properties. So we're going to go is block on, this is a Boolean, so we're going to go equals to, and then we're going to set this to false. And we're going to do that for all of these. Make sure that you have a comma between the two properties, or any properties that you have there. We also need one for the state. So this is angle, and this is a number, so we're going to test if it's equal to 0. And this is where it's going to get a little bit more complex because we're going to need to make all the different types of states. So easiest way to do that is just to copy and paste. Now I recommend actually adding a comma here for the time being, and we're going to copy all of this and we're going to paste this in. Now what we're doing with this one is we're going to set the angle to 1, and this is still going to be the off state. And then we're going to paste this again, and then we're going to update the angle to 2. And then what we're going to do again is we're going to paste again, and then we're going to select our angle for 3. And after we've done all that, what we can do is we can use Notepad++ to basically make this a little bit more easier. Now, if you're on Mac, I'm not sure how you can do this. I'm sure there's applications out there that you can work on for filtering all this stuff out. But what we're going to do is we're going to select all this stuff here for our angles until we get to angle 0 up here. And what I want to do is I want to go to replace, and we're going to make sure that it's in selection. And what I want to do is I want to test is block on, and we're going to test for the equal sign, and we're going to test for false. And we're going to replace it with true. And we can replace all. And that's going to update all the ones that are in our selection here. So as you can see, those are all true. So we didn't actually need to make any changes for all of those different angles. Now, with the model part down below, this is where it's pointing to for our block path. Now, default, this is basically the folder that's in, and then this is the file that it is. So we want to actually make another one here, and we're going to call it cube, and we're going to set probably... let's see, let me just double check what I would need for this. Okay, so looking into our model file that is for the block here, this is where we're going to be connecting to, right? So we want to make sure that we have the parent, which is going to be under our namespace, under custom, and then this is going to be called cube 0. So this is the model that it's going to be locating to. So this is cube 0. We're going to need to also make on states for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy that model there, this one. We're going to copy it, and then we're going to put it in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we name these accordingly. So you might want to organize these a little bit more, maybe into off states or subfolders, maybe like on, off, or folders like that. And then you can separate them a little bit more. We're going to do that actually. So I'm going to go on, and then we don't need to name the files again. So what we can do is we can just specify the state. So we're going to go 0. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that these textures are, the texture names here, are the ones that we imported into our MCreator. So these should be the names at the end here. So this should be cube on. And all that one's completely set up now. So we can go ahead and copy this, paste it, rename, and we'll go ahead and set this one to 1. And then we'll go ahead and just update this block model here. And we'll do that for the other ones, and they'll cut back in. All right, so once we've gone ahead and created our model files, again, these are all the ones that I've created. The only difference between these is we have our on states. So those stay the same for our texture. And then we've basically just specified the model, the parent model for cube 0. Cube 1, Cube 2, and Cube 3. So these are all the on state ones. So the only thing that we need to change now is what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and copy this folder. And we're going to copy and then paste it. And then we're going to, yeah, we don't need this one here. We're going to rename this folder here to off. And then what we need to do is, because these are all the same file names, we don't need to update these names at all because they're in its own folder. We can go ahead and just update these to the off ones. So we'll update the model names for these ones, or the texture names. So we'll be doing that to all of these here. So we'll just copy and paste the names in quickly, and then we don't need to worry about having to set all that up. So now our path for these are going to be a little bit different. So we have our cube, which is our folder here, and then we have either on, which is, and then our file, or we have off and our file. So we just need to go ahead and correlate all that to our actual model itself, our block states. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up that block state again. We're going to close out of the models that we don't need. And we just need to go ahead and make sure that we assign the right ones to the variables that we set. So we just go cube off, and this is cube and 0 for this one. So that would be the path name for that. And we're going to just copy that, and we're going to paste this in for all of these 0 ones. So like that. And then for the ones down here, what we're going to do is we're going to set this cube to 1. And we're going to do that for these ones. And we're going to go down a little bit more, do that one, and then this is 2. So we'll do this for all of that. I'll cut back in when I get to the on state. All right, so I'm down to the on state. So what we're going to do is, rather than have to go ahead and update the name of the model, what we're going to do is we're just going to update the name of the folder. So we're going to do that. Now, again, latest is the namespace for the mod, and then this is the path inside the namespace. So make sure that you have the right namespace when you're doing this. I can't stress that enough, because if it's pointing to a namespace that doesn't exist, it's going to give you an untextured error. So we're going to do that for all the on states. And then I'm going to just throw this through a validator to make sure that the procedure itself is all set up and ready to go for actually importing. So I'll cut back in when I'm about to do that. So I already know that there's going to be an issue with this particular file, just looking at the bottom of the file here. So what I'm going to do is, this will be a perfect time to demonstrate how to use validator. So I'm going to go to one of the sites that I'm linked to, and it's JSON lint. I'll provide that in the description so you guys can basically use this. So basically what it does is it validates if the JSON file is formatted correctly. And all you need to do is paste in your JSON file structure here and go ahead and click validate. And we got an issue here. It says whereabouts it is. So we can see that it's Y0, and then it's basically listing line 22, and it's going to highlight it right at the bottom here. This is where I said that there's going to be an error. So I saw that right at the beginning when I was coding it. So we actually removed this comma here because it's at the end of the thing. You can see that this is actually happening with the rotations again. So it doesn't have a comma here. This one does, because there's content in the same object that's after the thing. So because this is the last entry, we don't actually need that comma there. So we'll go ahead and copy that back over. We'll clear, and we'll paste this in again, and we got a valid JSON file, so that's good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and save this, and as long as your block is locked, this file will not update. And we need to update one more thing for the item itself. So we're going to edit the item, and we're going to open it with Notepad. And there is a part that's pointing to the old path here. So what we want to do is, this is the model that it's located for the cube itself. So I'm just going to set the default rotation for this path here, which is our off block is called cube, like our block, cube, off, and then our cube 0. So this one should be fine for our item itself. So this is just going to point to that particular model here. And we're going to save that, and we should be good to go, unless the water logging has changed since the other version, which I'll have to check into. But we'll check that into as we're testing. So after that, all we need to do is, well, first thing, I suggest backing up your models folder, which is this one right here, and your Blockstate folder. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm just going to create a new folder on my desktop. And I'm going to copy the entire Blockstate folder, and we're going to open that up and paste this in here, just so if we have to edit the model or the block itself, we can just replace these two folders and add them back so all the files are properly in the correct order and stuff. So after you've done that, go ahead and see we have the models in Blockstate here. It was off screen, so I just wanted to show that. So we can go ahead and close that, and we'll pop in game and give this a test. After we regenerate the code, it's always good to do that just quickly and do a quick build. All right, so just going to quickly do this test, and we're going to go into our building blocks and scroll all the way down to the bottom, because that's where I put the block. And right now you can see that the block isn't actually animated. I'm not sure how to animate the items, honestly, so that's a little bit above me at the moment, but we can place it down and you can see that it's animated. We can even do the rotation. So all the different rotations work, and we can turn these on by right clicking. So you can see that they're rotating accordingly, and we can turn them off again as well. So they're basically set up properly. They're displaying, there's no texture issues or anything like that that will cause it to be the purple and black texture. So if there's an issue with the JSON or the path or the image or the model, chances are there is the wrong name or the wrong path to the file name, either the texture or the model. If it's that case, then it's going to display something that is a black and magenta, I guess, color, for basically saying that there is a missing texture or model. So, but this doesn't do that. It has all the animations and stuff, so that's perfect. And there's one more thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and test this underwater. I wanted to see if it can be waterlogged. So yes, indeed, it can be waterlogged. It's working perfectly fine for the waterlogging. So as you can see here, it's waterlogged, it's perfect. So we don't actually need to add the waterlog part. We just needed the on and off part and then the number for our rotation. So anyhow, if you are new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe, comment down below, rate the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace out.